Two screens, two different views. That's what we're all about. Dual Screen Radio, where listening is good.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the premiere episode of Dual Screen Radio. This is Shane R. Monroe.
And this is Chris Anchel.
And welcome to our first show. We hope to give you some good stuff on the Nintendo DS. We're hoping to be a quality internet radio show featuring all sorts of good stuff. We want to talk about games, talk about the DS. We want to talk about pretty much anything that deals with the Nintendo DS. And my co-host here, my compadre in arms, is Chris. Hey, Chris.
How you doing? Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Both of us.
Exciting.
It's going to be very exciting stuff. Very good. Well, let's start off. Chris, let's talk about why we're doing a DS show.
Well, I think the most important thing is, there really isn't anything like this out there right now. There's no real outlet for the DS other than some, basic news sites. And it'd certainly be nice to just sit and talk about all the great innovation and games and so forth that are coming out for this fantastic little system. You get so much going on with it, and it's going to be, I think, a lot of fun to discuss, and especially the next year. There's so much great stuff coming out for it. It's just only going to get better.
Absolutely, and I think part of the problem is when you have the Sony hype machine backing the PlayStation Portable and you have all the Xbox 360 crap going on, it's really easy to forget that the last year Nintendo's been cranking out high-quality titles and very exciting things for the Nintendo DS, and it's very easy to forget this last holiday season that the DS sold over 1 million units over December, and they're past 13 million units worldwide, I should say.
Right.
And with that in mind, I think that the show is really dedicated to showing all the good stuff that the DS can do and talking about why it's not a gimmick, why it is innovative, and maybe what the DS's strategy is with Nintendo's future with the Revolution.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is, it's so insane right now, especially in Japan, because it's completely sold out, and they can't keep them in stock. They don't have any in stock, and I think over there especially, it's just. I think in the long run, since it is a Japanese system from a Japanese company. If it's doing well over there, it's only going to be doing good for everybody else in the world. I mean, that's where most of the software is going to be coming from, especially first-party support.
It's truly amazing the sheer amount of software that Japan has that we don't, that hasn't made it over here yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they got some stuff coming out. I think the next big game that we're going to be seeing, hopefully in the spring, I think it was around March, if I'm not mistaken, is the brain training games. That's going to be the next big phenomenon that they're going to try dumping on us. I guess the last time they tried that was Nintendogs, and to a smaller aspect was Animal Crossing back in December. Although we've already been subjected to Animal Crossing in the past, so it wasn't really much of an original idea over here. But Nintendogs was explosive in both countries. And brain training is kind of going to be a newer piece of software, much like Electroplankton, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. And in that it's a totally different type of game and a totally different way of playing it. And the Japanese seem to really be into this kind of stuff. I don't know what it is, but I'm all for like original gaming and innovation, especially. I mean, it's a nice change of air and fresh air to begin with, especially compared to a lot of other stuff that's out there. Not the dog on it, but the PSP. It's a neat little system, but most of the games are just ports from the PlayStation 2. And something like this, there's a lot more software on the DS. It's just a lot more fun to pick up and play and put away. And there's a lot of neat games that are corner to that aspect of gaming.
I think a lot of people have forgotten why we have portable gaming to begin with, and I think that's something that we should talk a little bit about before we get into the meat of the show. Is, one of the reasons I think that the PlayStation Portable is not doing well, aside from the fact, I mean, it's obviously selling and there's definitely a market for it, but I think in terms of gaming, I think it's one of those things where we've seen these games before. They are ports of their console cousins, and they're really intended for a different environment. You
Right.
want to sit on the couch with your 10-foot distance from the screen, your glorious surround sound, and you want to sit for 4 or 5 hours and run through a bunch of missions. Whereas in handheld gaming and portable gaming, there really is a market for the burst gaming where you turn the sucker on, within 30 seconds you're in a game, you play for 5-10 minutes, whatever your delay is, whatever your ride on the bus is, whatever your time to the movie starts happens, whatever. You burst through that, and you're done. You can feel accomplished. You feel like you've done something. You shut it off. Go pick some fruit in Animal Crossing. Go harvest a little bit. Go dig up a couple fossils, and then you can shut down and not feel like you got cheated. That 5 minutes of your time was spent with the UMD disc spinning.
Right.
And I think that's really important to note that while we're seeing diverse software, we're seeing more digital interactive entertainment versus the quote video game. I think the DS is a perfect medium for that.
Oh, exactly. I mean, there's so many different ways of playing games now. I mean, they've got the use of a built-in microphone. They've got the Wi-Fi connection, which I think is going to be really big once they get it rolling a little more. It's starting out a little shaky, but all this stuff is just packed in there, and you get, of course, the touch screen, which adds a little different way of playing the game besides using the basic A, B, X, and Y and directional pads. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are kind of thinking, well, what is this? This is a little strange. It looks like a Palm Pilot, and I've played these type of games already. It's no more like using a mouse. Well, but the thing is, you can take this with you, and like you said, being able to be on the bus and say, let me check on my Nintendo and walk my dog and maybe feed him and water him and then put it down when the bus arrives and you're ready to go to work. You summed it up pretty well, and that you don't feel cheated because you didn't get to finish that level, or no, I didn't get a chance to save that game. I'll have to replay it later. A lot of these games actually allow you just to save the game anytime you want, more or less. So that really
no looking for the level checkpoint in each level and not being able to get there in time before the bus comes to a stop.
Right.
I think the other thing too that really makes the DS special is the fact that it's not trying to be a convergence device. And I think Sony's PlayStation Portable product, while it's very sleek, very sexy, and you pay for that, I think that it started off, they tried to make it a gaming unit. They're realizing that people have already got the games and whatever, and then they slid it over to like a multimedia device, and I think the consumer's a little, confused. Yeah.
Yes.
What is this, the gaming system? I have to buy all my movies again if I want to watch movies. I got to
It's not very focused at all.
That worries me. I don't want to see the DS go that way. And, that's why, they have the Play-Yan in Japan, which is a media player cartridge that would work on the DS to watch MPEG-4s and to play MP3s. And I'm really glad they haven't brought it over here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I don't really see much market for it over here. I'm actually a little surprised they even have it. It seems like over here would be the place it would be, not in Japan, where over here people don't really necessarily want a device, as you call it, that can do everything in itself, a convergence device. They want something that, I mean, in my opinion, the DS is great because it plays games. That's what I want to do, play games. If I want to sit and look at the web or do my date book or anything like that, keep addresses, contacts. I mean, I get a Palm Pilot or just stick with my laptop. I don't want a quote-unquote gaming system that plays MP3s, shows videos, and I just want to play games. And that's the problem, I think, with the PSP, and I think a lot of people are confused by that. I agree. I mean, right now, it seems like most of the money that the PSP is bringing in is based on the movie aspect, the UMD media. I don't see as many games so much as I see twice to 4 times the amount of movies. So the DS is great for me in that I want to play games, and that's what it does. And they're taking all these little advances in technology, a lot of them that the PSP actually has, but they're not branching out too much. And that's one of the reasons why, as you said, the Play-In I'm glad it didn't come over here. I mean, I don't want to use it to watch videos and listen to music. And how well would the quality be anyway to really listen to it?
Absolutely, and I think that people lose sight of that. And you know, we got people, the iPod generation and the convergent cell phone generation. I think that they're all missing the point. You know, there's always been, I mean, literally, you could drive a hammer in with a screwdriver if you tried hard enough.
Right.
You know, and you could also screw in screws with a screwdriver, but that doesn't make it the best tool for the job. And I think people believe that you can take a single device and make it the best tool for every job. Just don't see it happening. I think there will always be a market for innovative product like the DS. You know, the cell phones have too small screens to game on, but that's what people want. They want the smallest possible cell phone. Right. You know, they don't want the brick cell phone anymore. They want to stick a Borg implant in their ear and talk on the phone. They don't want a giant, crisp, clean screen to play on. I don't know. It just drives me crazy when people's like, well, you know, can I make the DS a PDA? Well, no, it's not a PDA. It's a game console.
Yeah.
You know, you can't watch movies on it. It's a game console. No, you can't listen to MP3s on it. It's a game console. It's like being a frickin' broken record sometimes. It's listen.
Yeah,
it's not what it's for.
When I first saw the DS and I saw that main screen, you know, you have the calendar and you have your name, you have a little clock, and I'm thinking, wow, this looks like almost like a Palm Pilot, you know? And I wasn't really sure where Nintendo was going to go with it. And the games started coming out, and there really wasn't anything to do with anything in terms of Palm Pilot software. I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to have like an address book, or I wonder if they're going to eventually develop some kind of web browser, which, you know, people were saying early on that was going to happen. And I don't really know how good a web browser would be. Granted, the touch stylus would be great to browse with, but the screen itself, you just don't have the type of resolution. And I know at first I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to do all these things, but a year later now, it's just all games, and I'm glad they really didn't do that. I really don't need that. I don't need another piece of hardware that does something that I may already have a piece of hardware that does do that for. You know, so
absolutely. You know, everyone's got an MP3 player. Everybody's got a cell phone.
Exactly.
You know, stop trying to replace stuff.
Right.
That's what I say. Well, that kind of gives you a summary of how we feel about the DS. I really feel that the DS is the most recent, I should say, video gaming device that actually has a soul to it. You know, the Dreamcast had soul, but I haven't seen anything since. I mean, I love the GameCube, I love Xbox too, but it just doesn't have a soul. And it's hard to explain that if you know, you're not cognitive of what gives something soul. But the DS has it in spades. The tactile touching, everything like that brings you closer to the experience. And, you know, I don't see it anywhere else. And that's one of the reasons I just love my DS.
Yeah, sometimes you get that, you don't feel, it is a different feeling. I do agree with you. I really can't pin it down. Playing the DS and playing something like the Xbox, which I actually don't have a problem with my Xbox. I like my Xbox to a point. But lately, I've been playing my DS so much more. I guess because the types of games on the DS just factor in a little better with me. I mean, I get tired sometimes of I do like to sit down and play a game at the couch. I was playing Halo for the longest time, but I guess I just got a little burned out on it. But picking up and playing the DS in bed, or well, there's many other places you can play the DS, which I'm not really going to go into. But
I play mine on the crapper.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
There you go. Somebody's got to say it. It's a great crapper device. Let's put it that way.
But it just suits me a little better. I like to just pick it up and play and go. And there's so many games on it. I've always been a fan of the whole 2D artwork and animation in games. And you know, it seems like nowadays it's all 3D this, 3D that. You haven't. I mean, it's art to a point, I guess, but you just don't picture a person sitting there drawing with their hand the artwork for a 3D game. And I think that the 2D games offer a lot more charm in their characters and presentation. I mean, look at Yoshi and Yoshi Touch and Go. Look at all his little animations and the way he scrambles his feet and his little tongue comes. It's just the baby Mario. It's just really neat stuff, and it really fits me. In my opinion, the DS is kind of a lost. it's got a lot of 2D, which I feel is a lost art nowadays. Everything's 3D, and you look at the Xbox or even the PS2. It seems like the companies nowadays have kind of centered around a few basic genres in gaming. It's racing, first-person shooters, and sports. Especially with the PSP and the PlayStation 2. There's just so much of that, more of the PSP, I guess. You don't see a lot of branching out of genres. You don't see any of these little running around and doing different things. And I know you like the game Gods of War, I think it's
God
called.
of War, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's a game in itself, it seems. I haven't really had a chance to play it, but it's just nice to see, basically, when it comes down to it, the DS is doing all these different new things. And not even so much with the stylus, but the way they're incorporating the stylus in the gameplay. And,
Well, let me just interrupt real quick, just
Sure.
while we're on the topic here. This is a great example of what I mean, or what we're talking about. A friend of mine, a coworker actually, was sitting around watching me perform an operation in Trauma Center. And he was looking at it going, man, that's really cool. He was even commenting that the graphics were cool. Now, you got to understand, this guy's like a diehard Xbox dude. And he's like, wow, that's really cool. That's a really neat game. The graphics look cool. Look at that gore. Oh, that's really cool when you did that. And then he said something that just kind of struck home. He said, I wonder if I could play that with a game controller or a gamepad. And I sat there for a second wanting to slap him for one thing. I mean, the purpose of this game is a in close and personal dissection of somebody's internal organs,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And sliding that stylus, it's all a feeling. And I looked at him and said, have you lost your mind? You couldn't play this with a gamepad. How would you make a straight cut? How would you...
It really brings you into it, though, like you just said.
It does.
It's very intimate, I guess. I know it's just a game, but a good game, a game that can bring you into it, make you feel as you're a part of this game, and that you're actually doing something, and it's up to you to proceed along. That's the markings of a good game. Anything that kind of brings you in and envelops you into it and gets you going, like Trauma Center does. I mean, you sit there and you're, especially when the little gauge is beeping and everything, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I gotta get going here with this patient. I'm trying to get this glass out of his arm, and his little heart rate's going up, and it really keeps you on your toes, and you feel like you're actually a part of this game.
I'll be honest with you.
Perfect example.
Go ahead.
No, the game is a perfect example of what you're talking about there.
It's funny. The last time that I really got worked up over a game was Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I turned all the lights off. I had the beating heart controller in my hand. It was all dark and creepy, and I got into it, and I really got into the game. And since then, I've played, Resident Evil 4, and I've played the successors, and there's nothing that's real. I mean, even God of War, no matter how great of a game is, never put me into it and got me into it like Silent Hill did. But Trauma Center, man, I'll sit there and sweat, and my hands will start shaking, and I get totally into the game. And that's something that you just can't dismiss as being, I don't know, a gimmick or some sort of a marketing ploy. It really is there.
Right, and that's easy for people to do. That's easy for people to dismiss the DS. They're always, it's just a gimmick. It's not going to last. And they were saying that at the beginning, and I'll be honest. I mean, early on, I wasn't too sure about the DS. I thought it was kind of, I don't know about this, And then I saw the game listing, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of neat stuff coming out for this. I mean, and Trauma Center was one of them, and I think that's one of the things that really hooked me onto this system. And you've never played anything like Trauma Center, where you're actually taking pieces of glass or giving people, taking out tumors, and you actually have to bandage them up. There's a lot to do, and it's a very hard game, though. I have to say that the game is intensely hard later on.
It does get very hard, and it's funny because people say, well, we've seen all this before. Trauma Center is just emergency room with a touch screen, or Nintendogs is just dogs, with a Z. It's just dogs with a touch screen, but.
Right.
It's just not. I mean, I can't begin to explain the difference between using a mouse and touching the screen. And I don't think people get that.
Yeah, I mean, you're holding on to this little stylus right against your screen just puts you that much closer to the game. I mean, you could be leaning back in the chair about maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 feet away from your computer with a mouse, a wireless mouse next to you. It doesn't really make you feel like you're in there in the game. This stylus keeps you close and personal with this little screen. I mean, it's really a fantastic little game. I really like it. Although I frustrated as anything at the end there.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I go through my periods where I'll play 1 or 2 operations. It'll get so damn hard that I've just got to shut it off before I throw the thing across the room. And then, you know, about a month later, I'll pick it back up and I'll finish that operation and I'll move on. I'll get all excited again. It's so cool. It's a game I haven't finished yet. I've got lots of time left to play on it. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
an amazing little title. But you know, like Nintendogs, when you're actually brushing your dog with a stylus, there's a tactile experience, and people dismiss that with It's like, you know what? I don't know. It just drives me crazy. But
anyway, I have to agree. I mean, you can't really replicate what you can do with a mouse. I know all these people are talking about, I'll wait for a DS emulator on the computer. You know, I mean.
Oh, I know.
I'll use a mouse. I mean, hey, hello. And they're like, well, how are you going to play that? You don't have a touchpad. Duh, I have a mouse. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same. It really isn't the same.
It's not the same thing.
You feel like you're just going through the motions with using a mouse, whereas when you're holding that stylus, you actually have to, you know, it's a totally different way of holding something, first of all. Holding a mouse and holding, I guess, a stylus, which is next to holding a pen or a pencil, is a lot more accurate. And it's a totally different change of things. It really is.
It is. And I think people just tend to dismiss it. But speaking of these weird games that Nintendo likes to put out, moving right along here, now that we've managed to banter about how cool the DS is, a new title recently, well, it's not new. It's new to us here in the West. The new title, Electroplankton, which is only available online currently, which I think is a huge mistake on Nintendo's part, but maybe they'll come around. Electroplankton is a gaming experience, more of a combination of art and music in this amazing, interactive, very zen experience on the DS. What do you think about that, Chris?
I have to agree with you. It's very zen in that just the other night I was sitting there in bed playing around with it, and you're kind of like sitting there with this glazed look on your face and your mouth's open, and you can just picture the drool dripping down as you're sitting there putting your little electroplankton through the motions of making music. And it's kind of like I shook my head and I snapped out of it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what time is it? You know, it's time for me to get out of bed. It just draws you in. You're sitting there without even thinking. You know, you're sitting there making all this neat music that anybody can really pick up and do. And I think that's the whole trick to it. There's no difficulty level whatsoever. It's whatever you want to do. You can give it to the smallest kid or the oldest person, and they can do something with it. And
I'll tell you something.
Fantastic.
You know, Electroplankton, just for people who may not have a single clue what the hell we're talking about, and it's bound to happen, Electroplankton features 10 different scenarios, and you can pick which one you want to play. And there's different types of fish or plankton in each of these worlds. And each world, you control how the fish move and hence make music. It's really hard to explain unless you can actually see it, but there's videos kicking around and demos running around that you can see it. There's a screensaver even that you can just throw on there to get kind of an idea what's going on. But using your stylus, and in some cases even the buttons and whatnot on the DS.
Right.
What's
the microphone as well.
And the microphone as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a total experience. And you choose the plankton, and depending on which level you're looking at, different things happen. One of them has like a little mixer where it plays a little riff from an old Nintendo game like Super Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong, and you start tapping these items in this loop to create a new loop of music using sound effects and other things you might recognize from old Nintendo titles. It totally makes you sound good. Even if you totally suck making music, which I do, you can sit here and tap this thing.
It makes you sound great. That's basically
it. Really does. Plug this thing in to like your speakers, or you plug it into your stereo, and the bubbling starts happening. You start hearing the water bubbling, and you start floating away. I know it sounds like creepy new wave, mumbo jumbo, but it does. You just turn it on, the bubbles start going. You select one of your plankton, you start, jamming with the music. And they've got really slow ones where it's all real melodic, and then they've got other ones where they dance number in the background. Yeah. Some of them you actually record your own voice for the fish to play. It's incredible. Chris, give me your thoughts on it.
Well, I do think it's a really neat little experiment. I love what they're doing with it. I love the music. It sounds really good, especially through the DS speakers. I think the DS has the most fantastic speakers for a little portable gaming device. And you got all these different types of fish, as Shane said, and each one does something different. You're bound to find at least one of them that you'll really connect with. I know one of the electroplankton are basically shaped like little snowflakes. And just by dragging the stylus all over them, they're all dispersed all over the screen in a little grid. And as you do so, you get a lot of tones from pianos. It's basically like playing a piano. And tapping each one will give you a different tone and degree of a tone. And I think it's a great little system, a little piece of software. I wouldn't call it a game. It's not a game. There's no beginning and there's no end to it. I know yesterday I was showing it off to my brother, and he even said, "Well, wait a minute. What do you have to do? What's your objective, more or less?" Is the way I think he was trying to come across. And I said, "There is none." And it's like, okay, it's not your typical game, so to speak. So, but if you enjoy music, you're going to love this little thing. Now, I know one of my big pet peeves early on, Shane already heard this verbatim, but I really do think there should have been a way for you to at least save maybe one or two of your songs at the least. I mean, I know there's times where I've actually sat there, I'm like, wow, that sounds really neat. It'd be cool just to be able to save it and put it aside and then say, hey, look at this, I made this song. What do you think? It's kind of cool. Show it off to your family or friends or whoever, especially if you're a little kid, and you feel especially good about making some music. You might want to show it to your mom or dad, and it's a shame you can't do that. And it's really strange that you can't, because it's not like they would need to add an extra battery into the cartridge or anything. But as Shane mentioned earlier, it looks like it's easy enough to actually plug it, your DS, and plug it into the laptop or your computer, and just record your music as you're playing it. And so I guess in that respect, it really doesn't have a problem. If you have a computer, then you really don't need that save function. But it's a great piece of software. I just wouldn't go running out looking to have a game. It's something you pick up, you play some music, you put it away. Kind of like one of those little Casio keyboards. So.
Yeah, and I think part of the mentality, and I could be totally wrong. I mean, Electroplankton came out quite a while ago. I think it might have actually been a launch title for the Japanese folks. I think part of the thing that they, other than the save feature, which I have a theory on that one, and I have no proof or anything behind, what I'm talking about, but my feeling is they meant this to be an experience, not a composition software. Yeah. And I think that they worried that if you created a method of saving, and I know it sounds weird, but bear with me on this, but if you create a method of saving, you get down to the point to where you're trying to perfect the composition. So you lay something down, and it's like working with like Acid or Sonic Foundry's Acid package or SoundForge, where you're like trying to line up everything just perfect, and then you play it back and you record a little bit more, you play it back, and it becomes work.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they didn't specifically leave a save function out just to keep you from overthinking it, I guess.
Yeah, and basically ruining the quote-unquote game. And it's easiness to just get in there and do something. I understand what you're saying in that respect, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very casual. It's very laid back. And, I think they should have packaged it with one of those dual 1/8-inch jack cables that you could just jack it right into your computer right away. Cool. And I think the Japanese version may have actually come with that, because it had like a bonus pack that came with Electroplankton, which had like a special set of headphones. And I think it had that 1/8-inch jack cable originally included with it. I could be wrong. But, that alone immediately empowers you. As soon as I did that, this is what's funny. I use my coworkers as sounding boards because they are very typical people. We're an IT department, so you have above level geekness, but there's a very diverse, I've got people in there that absolutely love video games. I've got people that are very generation gimme, to put it bluntly. They're into whatever's hot, whatever's the latest technology. They could care less about anything that's old or anything innovative. They're waiting for the next first-person shooter on Xbox. And then I've got people that are somewhere in between, and I can sit back and judge how a game works or how effective it is based on watching the people around me at work, which is really creepy. I shouldn't be playing Electroplankton at work anyway, but whatever. But one guy, we've been throwing down Mario Kart left and right in multiplayer LAN at the office quite a bit. That's our smoke break. And one guy just refuses to get on board. I'll bring an extra DS to work, and he still won't fall into it. But man, Electroplankton rocked his world. It was what touched him, which is really funny. I mean, okay, it's cool. I love Electroplankton, but I wouldn't have thought that it would take somebody who had no interest in, a portable gaming console and saying, "Oh man, that's really cool."
Was he into video games at all?
No, not at all. I mean, he has absolutely no use or need for video games. He's one of those kind of people. I got better things to do than play games. And so he's like, "Oh man, that touched him in a way that nothing ever touched him in that respect." And then, of course, he had to make the dumbass comment, "Well, can I get that on my PDA?" It's like, no. I love that people just assume that Nintendo or anybody else is just going to run right out and just port that guy right over to a PDA. And I don't know. I thought that was a lot more funny maybe than it really was, but I almost wanted to slap him. I was like, "No, smack! Pick up a DS. It's a quarter the price of that PDA you've got."
Exactly.
I don't know. People drive me crazy, but I thought that was a very interesting thing with Electroplankton, that you can engage somebody.
Who had no interest.
It's like pack picks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool little story there. I mean, if something like that is going to be able to draw them in, then maybe there is hope for them.
Yeah, and I mentioned pack picks because that was another game that somebody at work who really had no interest in the DS, they were willing to take the DS out of my hands and play pack picks.
Wow.
And that's something, that you never get. People are always content to watch or show me, but when people are willing to take something in hand and do it, you're on the right track. And I think Nintendo's definitely on the right track with these sort of things.
Yeah, that's great. And stuff like this with the Electroplankton and hearing what you just said is I think what makes the DS cool. I mean, it's really neat the way they're trying to innovate to a point. And I do think that's cool. I mean, I'm not just a Nintendo fanboy. I like everything. I mean, I've had tons of game systems all over the years. And in my opinion right now, I think the DS is just one of the coolest things out there. I mean, it's great. It really is. And this is the reason right here why I think it's great. You could just find somebody that would have no interest in video games and say, "Hey, wow, I like this." It's great.
I think that's really Nintendo's strategy. The revolution.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. They're trying to tap. Let's be honest. Gaming is a finite market. There are always kids that are growing older that get into video games, and then they get older, and then they pass out of video games. They become busy. So there's a finite period and a finite audience of what we would call video gamers.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo realizes that the real market, the real cash, the real buckage is going to be in tapping the non-gamer market, and the DS is just the start of it.
Right. Especially I guess the main crowd right now they're saying is between the the 15 and 25-year-old demographic, and basically Nintendo is trying to branch out to everybody who isn't in that demographic with games like this. And the game I mentioned earlier, which is called Brain Training. I mean, over in Japan, Brain Training is a huge hit with the Japanese housewives. It's just, I think it's because women have that nature to want to think things through a little more than go around and cap the next guy in the head on a video game, with blood flowing.
Brain Training's awesome.
Right. So, and instead of capping somebody's brains out in Halo, they're going to want to just cap their brains, in a mental way of doing things. I mean, I think that's why it took off. It's just, I can't wait to see how it does over here.
I'm done. I don't care how it does over here, as long as I get a copy in English, because, I saw the E3 demo, and it's all in Japanese, and it's almost impossible to figure out what the hell to do. But once you get to a point, I finally managed to get the demo to a point to where I could play a simple addition game. You know, it's like 4 plus 3 equals what? 2 times 5 equals what? And you actually write the numbers with the stylus. You turn the machine sideways, which is totally freaky. You flip it on its side, and all of the instructions or what you're supposed to do are on the left, and the touchscreen is on the right. And you can change this depending on what hand what handed you are, whether you're left or right-handed. Yeah. But then it'll flash up a number, 4 times 4, and you have to write down the number, what that means. And it does sort of a character recognition to make sure you got the answer right. And it's so goofy. It's like preschool stuff, but you're like totally engaged in it. And you want to do it more.
It's really
it puts your mind.
They're making you addicted to education.
What the hell is that all about? And what's funny is I know people that are going to go out and buy their kids DSs just because now they can actually justify and say, oh, well, look, now I can let them learn too.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is the game. I mean, I've only seen some screenshots and gotten an idea of how it plays. But to me, it almost, if you've ever played WarioWare, it's almost like a more mental version of WarioWare. Instead of getting a quick mini game where you have to pick a woman's nose, or dig a tunnel through a booger or something stupid like that. Yeah, which I think is one of the things in WarioWare Touch. It's almost like you're in somebody's nose, and you're picking at obstacles like snots and stuff to get the little explorer through. And instead of doing that, you're getting things like, okay, real fast, recreate the map of Africa, and you have to draw the map of Africa. And that was the big joke I had before where, some guy was commenting on one of these forums, what's going to be next, brain training on game facts. Okay, here's how you get by the drawing of Africa. I've actually drawn the diagram out, so this will get you past that part of the game when you're stuck, It's going to be great. So
that's so funny. I can just see the strategy guide already.
Yeah, all right. 2 plus 6. Oh, I need my strategy guide. What is this?
I need the strategy guide, man. That's so funny.
But I can't wait for this. As long as it's in English, I don't care how it spells. I really want to try this out.
Based on Electroplankton, how it's been like, a bestseller on Amazon and everything else, I think we might just maybe, as a gaming community, we might just be ready to try something new. I know it sounds crazy. In a world filled with sequels, rehashes, and name whoring, that we might actually be interested in something that's not the same thing we played last year.
Right, exactly. I mean, over and over and over. And that's why I was saying earlier, it seems like we have 3 basic genres, racing, sports, and first-person shooters. Or, to that point, World War II shooters, So,
yeah.
I mean, how many times am I going to be storming the beaches of Normandy? So it's nice to see something like this come along and just kind of like throw something new into the pot, so to speak. I mean, hey, I'm all for that. I actually like those military shooters, but at the same time, I would also love to play something like this brain training. I like all kinds of games. I mean, I'll play anything, but something innovative and new and fresh, the better.
Yeah, it's important to realize that we sound like Nintendo fanboys. But I know Chris has got a loving Xbox over at his place. I've got a GameCube and a PlayStation 2, which I play religiously. We are not stuck in 1985.
Heck, I mean, I was if anything, I'm a Commodore fanboy. I was Mr. Commodore,
right,
and I didn't even hear of the Nintendo until I was at the store one time, and this was almost 20 years ago now, like 1986 or so. And they were just showing off the Nintendo, and I said, I guess that looks interesting. But the thing is, it never really struck me because, everybody was like, wow, look at these graphics. Wow, look at this. I think a lot of people were comparing it to the Coleco and ColecoVision and the old Atari and everything. And meanwhile, here I am sitting at home, and I'm thinking, well, I have a Commodore 64, and the games on there are just as good, I think, But, of course, eventually you fall into it and you get caught up. I got stuck up in the Nintendo. I mean, there was a lot of neat stuff. And, I mean, I'm not centered around one piece of hardware. And right now, I'm just really excited about the DS and the neat things that it's doing. And just between the wireless and the touch screen and the microphone all being one integrated little, excuse me, game unit, it's just really adding a lot of neat stuff to it. So it's just got me real excited. I mean, Xbox. I've seen that before. It's the same system. You got a little control pad. And you're going through the motions. This added a little more to it, and a lot of people call it a gimmick. But when you play something like Trauma Center, to go back to that again, or even Electroplankton, I don't think it's a gimmick. it's a new kind of game, and I think the best place to play some of these games, especially Electroplankton, is on a handheld. I can't really imagine playing Electroplankton on a 32-inch high-definition TV. Nobody's going to want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather be playing like Burnout or something on that.
Every platform has its dominant type of game that works out. Game Boy Advance, you're not going to be playing Burnout on it. You're not going to be playing God of War on it. You got to have that beefy-ass home console plugged into the big high-def TV to play stuff like that. But at the same time, you're not going to want to play Trauma Center on it, at home.
Exactly.
On your big screen. It just doesn't, to everything there is a season, I guess. And I think that things like Electroplankton, things like Trauma Center, Nintendogs, Brain Games, it's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And Nintendo knows what they're doing.
Oh, definitely. I think they do know what they're doing. And, they're going to, if you think about it, I saw somebody mention this, and it was a good point, in that when Nintendo brought out the original Nintendo system, it was just after a crash. Everybody was interested in video games anymore. Everything was on clearance, Atari 2600, and, they were trying to bring out a new version of Atari. It bombed. ColecoVision went down the tubes. Television, sorry to say, that was went down the tubes. That was another personal favorite of mine. And Nintendo came out with this Nintendo Entertainment System, and they had, these new. They tried to not box it as a gaming system to get back in the market, and I think they're the reasons why gaming continued as we know it now. Everybody kind of owes him one for getting gaming back into the just on the streets again. Other than the arcades. The arcades there's no arcades around now, but back at the time, the arcades were kind of fizzling out too. They had their heyday in the early 80s. So, and I think right now Nintendo is trying to, especially with the Revolution, trying to pique interest again. I think even though the games are selling great, Xbox, PlayStation, I think they're selling great. They're selling great, but I think people want more, and I think they're trying to change that again. And that just like they did with the old Nintendo Entertainment System, and they're trying to get things going again.
If nothing else, they get points for at least trying to do something new. Weren't you telling me about some cooking game that was coming out?
Yeah, there were some images online of this new cooking game that's coming out in Japan. A typical Japanese goofiness. You get the little cartoony cook girl there, and it's something called Cooking Mama, or something to that respect.
Gotta love that.
Now, I don't know what it'll probably be called. Something like Iron Super Chef over in America. They wouldn't use a name like that here, but. It was really funny. If you've ever seen the little Revolution, I don't know if you've ever seen the video for the Revolution controller showing it off and doing its different types of gaming.
There was one guy that was cooking with it.
Right, he was in there. It's almost like he's looking at the screen in a little chef's hat, chopping up a cucumber or something. And that's almost what this looks like to a point. But in this, it looks like from the screenshots, you're moving skillets around and placing items in this skillet and turning stoves on with your stylus. So I don't know if that's up my alley, but it's just cool that they're trying to do something like that. It's funny, just adding that stylus aspect to it really brings it up a level, because if you were just sitting there doing that with your traditional, directional pad or analog stick, it'd be kind of like, this is boring. But when you add that extra aspect of the stylus, you're actually like in Trauma Center, you get real intimate with it to the point where I guess you feel like you're cooking, to a point. But it looks interesting, and that's just another thing that they're trying to do, I guess. I'm not really sure who's making the game. I don't think it's Nintendo, but I almost want to say it's Namco, but which is equally goofy. But
that is equally goofy. It's funny because. Everybody said, I specifically remember somebody saying on one of the forums, what if they made a cooking game, you'd call that new and innovative too.
Right.
Do you remember that post that we saw on one of the forums?
Yeah, I really don't offhand. I'm sorry, but
that's okay. But anyway, somebody, we had basically been saying that these, things like Nintendogs and Trauma Center were innovative in the mannerisms in which they were letting you play. Mm-hmm. And then one of them had a smart mouth attitude and said something like, well, I guess if they came up with a cooking game that used the stylus, you'd think that was innovative too. Yeah. And it's funny that now there's a cooking game coming out. But let me put something in perspective. Yeah, coming full circle, the circle of life. No. It's funny. The people who say, "Oh, a cooking game, that's stupid," would be the first ones that would jump into a game that happened to fit more into their lifestyle. I mean, I'm not a cook. I'm not a chef, and I may or may not get into cooking with the DS. But if you were to do something that was up my alley, that was more of a simulation than a video game, I'd probably buy into it. I was just thinking, how do you get somebody who wouldn't play video games? I'll take a car mechanic. What if you had a car mechanic that, you were trying to target that particular audience? You could make a game where you actually repair automobiles using the touchscreen. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not a mechanic, but dude, I'd almost play that.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be interesting. You gotta,
something where you could actually zoom into the engine and pull this out, pull that out. I mean, you could actually learn something. I would do that. I'm sorry. I mean, I just think it's all a matter of touching people the right way, no pun intended, and getting whatever particular thing floats their boat. And I think the current gaming market is so closed. Like you said, there's 3 or 4 genres out there, and that's it. How do you expect to get Grandma to play? Grandma ain't playing Halo.
No.
Grandma ain't playing Call of Duty. Hell, she probably has nightmare flashbacks of her husband being killed at Normandy.
Right,
or
exactly,
you know what I'm saying?
exactly.
She ain't going to be playing Call of Duty. And she may not want to play a cooking game. But, you referenced the Nintendo Revolution video where they were showing people doing different things. One guy was fishing with his kid. I could totally see a fishing game working with the Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
I could see when they had the old people conducting music.
Right.
I mean, that's how you do it. You go after the Lawrence Welk generation. Conducting music, popping bubbles, whatever else, whatever. I mean, there are so many untapped markets, and the only way you're going to get there is to break the mold and do something new, do something fresh. And that's what we're really talking about here.
Yeah. Well, we're going back into that again. We're talking about the DS, and it's
okay. Yes.
We got to move on, I guess, in terms of.
We got to move along. Enough of
the bottom line is getting back to electroplankton. I know you're a big fan of it. I've kind of grown a little warmer towards it. I was kind of put off at first. I couldn't get it, I guess. Not like your coworker, obviously. I didn't get into it that much. I see what it was trying to accomplish, though. And I think that's the important thing. And I guess if you're really into music, that's what you're going to want to have. I just don't buy it as a game, so to speak. But if you're enjoying it, I guess we can end with the electroplankton talk. I mean, I know you're enjoying it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely think that you've got to. I recommend it, but you have to know what you're getting into. You have to realize that there is no end result. Like Chris beautifully said earlier, and we've talked about this at length outside of the show, and he probably explained it better there. But like the old Casio keyboards, remember back in the old days for like $59, you could buy this little like 3-octave keyboard. You could sample your voice with it. You could make it play back. Ferris Bueller had that on the Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he would sample his cough and his cold, and he could play in different tones with it on the keyboard.
Exactly, yes.
That's the sort of thing. It's almost a musical instrument in itself. It's like a Casio keyboard, only totally high-tech, totally zen, and there's a definite Nintendo slant to it. You get to play back the old Nintendo music and things like that. But understand, it is something to experience. Now, the one thing you may not want to experience is the price tag, which is $35, but that's probably because it's short run online. I imagine once it gets into the stores, we'll probably see it more for the $29. Some people it's not going to rub right. You're going to find it used for $24.
Yeah.
And if you're not immediately attracted to what we're saying, hold off till the bargain bin, hold off till it's used, or borrow it from a friend.
Definitely worth trying first.
You got to try it out, or at least watch somebody play. I'm sure that we'll see a kiosk demo of it eventually, and you'll be able to play with it in the stores. But it's something that either it works for you or it's not going to work for you. Chris is kind of in the middle of it all, but for most people that I've seen, it's like, that's stupid or that's way cool. And so far, more people, even the non-video gamers, say that's way cool. And that's a cool thing. But again, plan on running down and buying that patch cable. It's a dual male 1/8-inch stereo jack cable. Make sure it's at least 6 feet so it gets to the back of your computer where your line in is, or into your stereo. whatever, wherever you're comfortable, you've got to hear it on the big speakers. And I promise you, even no matter how good the Nintendo speakers are, and they are fantastic in the DS, the simulated surround is amazing.
Oh, it's got great sound for this little thing. I mean, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Amazing how much sound they popped into this thing. Really good.
Especially Electroplankton. I mean, some of the games have decent soundtracks, but when you play Electroplankton, it's amazing. But anyway, when you put it on the big audio, not the big screen, but the big speakers, it's an experience. It's a completely different deal, and without having that cable, you're going to miss part of that.
Yeah.
So, I'd say if it sounds interesting to you, at least try it. If what we're saying just excites the living crap out of you, go order it. I mean, you can get it at Amazon, you can get it at Nintendo's official site. GameStop will sell it online.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
You don't want it to be like Animal Crossing.
The only problem is it looks like for now it's only available online. I mean, you can't just go down to Target or Kmart or what have you and pick it up. You have to actually get it online, which is a shame. I've seen some really bad games out there already for the DS, like Elf Bowling, which
oh my god!
And yet they keep a game like this that you can't even get to it. I don't really understand the reasoning behind it, because I think you even pointed it out at one point. It was number 1 on Amazon's video game list.
Still in the top
10. It's amazing. I mean, I don't see Elf Bowling on there, so or Snood. So it's a shame.
Man, Elf Bowling sucks.
It's a shame. It's really a shame that this isn't out there for more people to pick up. I mean, because just even the box cover, I think, is really cool looking. It's just minimalistic in a way, and it's soothing. It's a really neat game just to sit down and relax with. And I think it's cool. I like it. I like what it's trying to achieve and accomplish, but it's really not for me. It's one of those things where I play for a few minutes and I'm done with it. Actually, I don't even know if I'm going to go back and play it again. I might sit and sample some music, try putting it on my computer and everything, but I just don't see myself playing as much, especially when you have so many other games coming out right now. It's definitely a fringe item, though. If there's other games, if you're limited to like maybe 1 or 2 games a month, it may not be one of the types of games you're going to pick up, especially with all these new games coming out, especially in the spring here. But for $35, I think it's a little high. I mean, I would probably punk down maybe if I was really into it. I would do a change and wait out, maybe see if you can grab it for 20 or whatever, even on eBay. But at the same time, you've also got that aspect that it may be limited. Who knows how long Nintendo is going to actually be selling this thing? So you might want to grab it while you can. So you have to kind of make your decision up pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, don't forget, go try to find a copy of Animal Crossing right now and see if you can find one of those at a local store. It's unbelievable. I mean, even GameStop, I was in there the other day, and they're like, dude, we can't keep them in the store.
It's insane.
They send us very short runs of it, and they're gone the same day they come in.
And we're beyond the Christmas buying season now.
Yeah, I think Chris has pretty much got the nail on the head. Either it's going to be for you or it's not. Give it a try. I think it's going to be a great thing, and again, it's not going to be for everybody.
No, exactly.
So keep that in mind. Well, let's move along. Speaking of what's coming in the spring, Chris, what are you waiting for?
Well, right now I just found out the other week. It looks like there's some screenshots and an announcement all of a sudden out of nowhere for Tetris DS. It's going to be exciting, I think. I love that game. I haven't played it recently, but at the time, I really loved it. And I think the fact that it's going to be now on Wi-Fi online is really going to add a lot of invigorate it and bring it up to date and make it exciting. I mean, there's been online versions before on the PC, but now you got in a little portable hand system here that you can just pick up and say, I want to get online and play some Tetris. That's going to be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, let's be honest, Tetris on the Game Boy, the original black and white Game Boy, was a phenomenon beyond words.
Oh,
man.
Everybody played it. Everybody played it to some point.
Everybody played it. It was the first time you could actually connect to a buddy and wipe his ass clean playing a game like that, a portable game. It was amazing.
Easy to pick up.
And so many people are like, oh, Tetris DS online, that's gay. We've had, what is it, TetrisNet or whatever.
Right.
This is all old stuff. It's like, are you freaking lost your mind? Were you not engaged for days and days playing Game Boy Tetris?
I know I was.
Oh, my God. And you can have like 10 people local?
Oh. 10 people online. And what's great is you're going to be able to see each person's playfield on your screen at once, much like Puyo Pop Fever, which is another favorite of mine. You'll be able to see everybody's playfield, see who's really screwing up and losing, and who is the one that you're most heated against to win. So that's going to be fantastic.
And I think that, Nintendo's not going to just port straight Tetris over. There's going to be good stuff. There's going to be weapons. There's going to be screwing your buddy. There's going to be tons of good stuff going on there. They're going to have all the signature stuff.
Well, I've already seen that they've actually got a few different modes. I'm not really sure exactly how many. I want to say 3 or 4. And of course, classic Tetris is one of them. But there's actually from the screenshots. Of course, since Nintendo is doing this, they've got all this Nintendo stuff going on. You got Mario in there, bouncing around. You got little animations up top on the top screen. You got a big picture of Mario on the side. It's very, very Nintendo oriented. They're going to have themes based around the Legend of Zelda, Metroid, of course Mario. And I know in one of the screenshots they had a image. It looked like an item, much like you said. There's probably going to be weapons, kind of like I guess this was a picture of one of the little goo ghosts from Mario. Now, I don't know what exactly it does, but the first thing in my mind that popped in there was, wow, you must be able to use that to steal the other person's piece, which I think could...
That'd be so awesome.
That would really add something to the game. I think that's really cool. I'm only saying that because in Mario Kart, obviously, the ghost will steal the guy in front of you's item, whether it be a banana or a shell. And in this, imagine how cool it would be to say, I really need that piece right now, especially one of those long... vertical pieces, you can just plop in there and get a full Tetris with. I'm always looking for them. So it'd be like, wow, I used the Boo Ghost, steal that piece, bring it down, and use it on mine. I think it's really going to add to it. You add in online play, and boom. And what's really cool is I've also read, much like most of the DS games, you only need one card to play this. From what I understand, you're going to be able to use one card and have a room full of people, and everybody's going to be able to play. You're going to have 8 to 10 people on one card. How great is that?
It is totally great, dude.
It's just fantastic.
It's like Metroid Pinball. Unless you've actually gotten to play Metroid Pinball off of one card, we actually had like 5 people on one card playing Metroid Pinball, and it's like totally cool.
Definitely.
They've got like one game they got with it for Christmas or whatever, and you just send it over.
Oh, we did that. We were doing that around Christmas time as well. I've had it since it came out. And we had, I guess, 4 or 5 of us in a room, and we were all playing Metroid Pinball. And it's like, just one more. One person would be like, all right, I guess we'll get going. No, just one more, And it's a great. It was really neat. I was thinking when I got it, how are they going to add multiplayer pinball? I could never figure that out. How do you make pinball multiplayer? And I'll tell you, they really got it nailed. It's nothing too in depth. It's pretty simplistic. You're just basically racing to a set high score. Now, one thing I really wish they would have done was added higher scores that you can get to. Reaching that, I think it's like 100,000 points. It's 100,000. That happens way too fast, especially when you get that one item. That one item that kills the game when you get that order.
It's $50,000.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly. So, forget it. It's just really fun, and I can just imagine the Tetris. Everybody knows how to play Tetris. Something like the Metroid Pinball, it took a few minutes to kind of get, initiated with, okay, what does this do? When I hit this thing, what does this do? Tetris, everybody knows how to play Tetris. And even if you don't, it takes you 2 seconds to learn. It's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. Don't downplay Tetris. I think that's going to be, especially since it's on the Wi-Fi service, free Wi-Fi service at McDonald's. Come on.
Everybody's will be on
this is a no-brainer.
Great stuff.
Nintendo's really got the finer points figured out. A lot of people say, well, I don't like the Wi-Fi service because I can't do chat rooms and I can't do IM lists and all this other stuff. You know what? None of those things are absolutely necessary to playing games online. Look at the 50% online market penetration of Mario Kart. Mario Kart does have 1 or 2 things that are wrong with its Wi-Fi service, but I can live with it. But, I don't think that chat or instant messaging, who the hell's going to be typing in the middle of the game while you're throwing
Exactly.
down?
The only time you need any kind of chat or messaging would be before a game to set the game up, especially if you want to play with specific friends. I know you and I have done this ourselves. I've done it with people I know. My family and so forth. And that's the only problem. You got to call. You make a phone call. Hey, want to play some Mario? Okay, great. You get online. You got your indicator. You know your friend's online. You start a game. It would be nice if there was maybe some kind of just basic Picto chat or something while you're in the lobby. Because obviously, if it's not even a safety issue, which is what Nintendo seems to be going for, because if you've already got that person as a friend on your friends list with a code, you're going to be giving that code to people you know already. So, I guess even if you get in the game blindly, it's fine. But it'd be nice to be able to specifically play against certain people at a time. But
and be able to cut off, do the cutoff after you've got one or two people because no one else is going.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
That's my big bitch. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they've minimized the Wi-Fi service so that literally anybody can play online.
They've dummied it down to enough that anybody can do it.
Dummied it down. And Nintendo continues to make these proper choices. Things like all of the single card games, like we were just talking about, where you can play 10 people on one card, 16 people on one card, 8 people on one card, and even so far as to actually offer demos of the game to transfer to other people. How freaking brilliant is that?
It's fantastic.
I mean, that's something I would have never thought about doing. I mean, who'd have thunk that? We got a little extra space left in the cartridge. Well, let's make a 5-minute demo version or a limited interaction demo version. Put it on the cart, and when you and I sit down, I've got the game, you don't. We play the game for a while, and you're like, oh, man, do we have to quit already? Oh, well, listen, I'll transfer you a copy of it over, and you can play it until you turn your DS on.
Yeah, that's great, especially I know the one game that I've seen it on. I'm not sure what other ones there are or not. I mean, I haven't played every single game, really, but Medios. I was shocked when I saw that when I first bought Medios, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really neat, You disperse it to anybody who might have any kind of inkling into playing this game. And it's just really neat little added feature. It's really great. I mean, you can play it until you turn it off. It's a limited version of it, but you get the idea of how to play the game, and if you would like to go out and purchase it. And I think Nintendo's crazy not to incorporate that more often. I mean, it's word of mouth. Like before we were saying, advertising is all word of mouth these days, it seems to me, in my opinion. And that's the best way to do it.
Speaking of this, one of the things on our list here to talk about deals with the synergy between the Revolution and the DS. And Nintendo, while they're keeping their mouths shut a lot on the Revolution, and I know there'll be a reason why, we'll all be enlightened in time. But one of the things they've said specifically is that the DS and the Revolution are going to talk. Much better than, say, the GBA and the GameCube, which was almost a gimmick. If it wasn't for Pac-Man Versus, it would have been a gimmick. But they are going to talk, and I believe personally that the DS and the Revolution's connectivity is one of the biggest, best-kept secrets that Nintendo's not letting out of the bag. I mean, just the concept of being able to hop online and pull a demo down. I mean, I know Xbox Live is doing this and all that other stuff, but in a handheld?
Yeah, that's convenient.
You know what I'm saying? This is incredible. You're going to be able to go and get that demo of Medios. You're going to get that demo of Nintendogs. You're going to be able to get a 2-level playable version of Kirby's Canvas Curse. You're going to be able to get all these things for free, wirelessly. You're going to sit in your chair with the Revolution turned on, and you're just going to be able to just go out and get whatever you want.
You turn your DS on and just transfer a demo wirelessly from the Revolution into your DS and just take it with you. I mean, I think that's a great way to, especially, I mean, what if Nintendo was trying to test the orders, I mean, they could easily do this with Electroplankton, Any of these new concepts that they're coming up with, this would be the perfect way to kind of get the game out there and get the word spread, without even doing any kind of advertising. I mean, because you could say, wow, where'd you get this game? Oh, I downloaded the demo. It's not out yet, but this is really neat, and then you can maybe some way of getting your input in there and what you think of the game. I know I get surveys from Nintendo all the time in my email account about Animal Crossing and Mario Kart and so forth. But this would be a great way to kind of test the waters and see what kind of games work and what don't, and being able to try them before you buy them. It's fantastic. I wish I could have done that.
And then you take that concept, just forget about the kiosks, forget about the downloadable demos.
Right.
Imagine what it would be like to be sitting around, just close your eyes, listen to my words. You're sitting around the living room. You're 15 feet away from your big-ass TV. You got the Revolution plugged in. You're playing Madden 07, whatever, some football game. Now, your DSs are your controllers. You get to see, maybe you're playing on teams. Who knows? But imagine being able to actually draw your own plays on the touchscreen.
That'd be cool.
Imagine having it showing your lineup. You circle, I don't know anything about sports. I'll sound like an idiot, but you circle number 6. You send him downfield by drawing it. You know how in the old days during football games, it would actually show the commentators writing out what the plays did, and it kind of overlaid on your TV with the X's and O's.
They actually do that in FIFA. It's great.
Yeah, you could totally do that with the touchscreen.
Yeah.
You could be doing your own plays left and right wirelessly. It's unbelievable.
That's actually what they were kind of trying to do with the Dreamcast. I don't know if you remember on the Dreamcast when that football came out. That was amazing at the time. The graphics, the 2K Sports football.
2K Sports was
great. Well, they were trying to do something like that with. Remember the Dreamcast memory cards had those little LCD screens on them.
They did.
And they were trying to incorporate play choosing on the NFL 2K by using that, and that way the other guy on the other isn't going to see what play you're taking. I mean, that ruins the fun right there. If you're going to blitz somebody, or make a running play, the guy's going to see, your opponent's going to see that you're going to do it, especially if you're choosing beforehand. Or the other way around. He can compromise you just by knowing what you're going to do. That'd be great if you could do that. You kind of get that little secrecy involved.
And I think personally, being a non-sport dude, I don't know what Hail Mary means. I don't know what all of these weird-ass football terms are. But, dude, put the team lineup in front of me on the touchscreen. Let me tap on somebody and draw where they're going to run. Let me draw whether they're going to be, receivers or runners. You let me draw that. I don't need to know what a Hail Mary and a blah, blah, blah active contrition is. I don't even need to know any of that stuff because I can draw the stuff out by hand.
Right.
I'm sorry. The possibilities, aside from the old GameCube GBA hookup, the Final Fantasy. Which one was that? It
was Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Supposedly, you could. I'm not really sure. I haven't really played too much, but I actually didn't play it at all, to be honest with you. But I do know that was the one big game that they were trying to do, where I guess you could have like a little map and inventory and so forth on your GBA, I guess.
And I did actually play it.
Oh, yeah?
I played it for about 10 minutes until I realized that I was going to have to spend like an hour and a half waiting to get back into the action. I hate Final Fantasy. I'll be totally honest with you. I can't stand games where I've got to sit and read for an hour before I get back into the game. It drives me crazy.
Except for maybe Phoenix Wright, huh?
Well, and I have not yet gotten to play Phoenix Wright. My wife hogged the game when we first got it. She played the living crap out of it. And she keeps telling me, you're going to enjoy playing this. And I'll be honest with you, I'm saving it for a dead time.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I've had it since October.
I'm waiting, and as soon as I get a lull period where I'm tired of Animal Crossing, I've raced my butt off on Mario Kart, then I'm going to be ready to pick up Phoenix Wright because I know I'm going to be like my wife. My wife didn't put it down until she finished it. I mean, literally, she'd be walking around the house playing it. She'd be on the toilet playing it. She'd be walking on her way out to the car to go to school playing it. So any game, the same with Trace Memory. I mean, once she starts playing these games, she doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And I know me, I get compulsive like that too. So Phoenix Wright's on the back burner.
That's exactly how I feel, though. It's one of my quote-unquote rainy day games because in like the next month or so, it's going to be a little quieter until March comes around, at which seems like Nintendo's going to be dropping a major bomb with all these releases. So I'll probably play it in there somewhere. But it reminds me of one of those old Infocom text adventures, and just with some extra graphics. And I popped in and tried that for a minute. I'm like, okay, I like it. I'll play it later, So.
Absolutely right.
Anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun. I guess getting back to the topic, a couple of the other games that they tried to do with the GBA and the GameCube was there was that Legend of Zelda game with the Four Swords Adventure, I think it was called, and they were trying to do something with that where you had your screen when you went into a tunnel, you got back on your GBA. It looked like, but it didn't really take off, and I think a lot of things were because everybody needed a GBA. Everybody needed one of those link wires, and I guess it was just too much for people to handle. Now, even if they just took the DS and made that an option, not necessarily a thing that you needed to have it for, but if they threw in, like you said, with the football, even if you didn't have a DS, but they had the option to use the DS, I think that would just add more to it, and just the technology that they have there that they can grant you would really push it over. I think it'd be great. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're going to have to come out with some very specific content to make that work.
Yeah.
I understand playing the safe end of the field and saying, well, you can play it with the DS, but you can also play it without it. I think that's one of those things that kind of, because they're not going to put nearly as much love into it.
Right.
It's going to become like one of those tack add-on things.
Exactly.
Instead of actually saying, this is a DS Revolution synergy game, you're going to have at least one DS to play it.
You don't want to confuse people either. I mean, there's a lot of confusion.
Don't want to confuse people.
That's what Sega did. Exactly. I think that's how Sega screwed up back in the early 90s and mid-90s. They brought the Genesis and they brought the Sega CD. Now we got the 32X, and you can't be expecting people to go and buy multiple systems like this and then just to play one game or two games and then not taking off with it. I mean, Nintendo's done that a couple times, most notably with that robot they had, Rob. I think there were 2 games for that. I mean, granted, it kind of came with the system, but you had to buy that specific system to get to it, and you had to pay the extra. Another thing I can think of right off the bat real quick was their big bazooka gun. They had that big bazooka light gun, which I actually bought, but there was 2 games for it, and the one was an included game. So, they need to be a little more careful, and they're probably treading water a little easier or a little more closely these days. They don't want to confuse the audience. Now that they've really gotten the upper hand, I think, with the DS, I don't think they want to go too crazy. I think they're trying to play it safe. But I do agree, there's only certain games that they should be doing this with, and the football would be kind of neat. But I really couldn't say what else they would use it for. I mean, I don't want it just thrown in there and then have the DS be called the gimmick for it. So.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's something that, game developers a lot smarter than us, those are the people that have got to come up with these ideas. I mean, instead of, don't put me on the spot on a show and ask me to come up with an idea. Guarantee you give me a couple of weeks, I can come up with the most kick-ass DS slant revolution tie-in title ever. Yeah. But, that's not my job. They're not paying me for that. So, they'll have to come up with it on their own. Or they'll steal it from my forums or my other radio show.
Right.
We'll come up with a cool idea, and then they'll just take it.
Yeah, right, and then you won't get paid for it.
And I still won't get paid for it, but, at least I can say, hey, I was the one that said that. They must have lived to it. But I'm very excited. I'm totally stoked about the concept. Now, the Revolution, I'm still taking cautious steps. Just because they did it right with the DS doesn't mean they're going to pull the Revolution off. And I am definitely not going to be one of these Xbox fanboys that pre-orders this thing, 24 weeks before it comes out, stand in line 15 hours, hope they actually have one. Screw that, dude.
I want to see the evidence of games first, definitely.
I'm going to see the games, and E3 will be the teller of the tale. E3, they're going to pull the cork, and everything's going to come out, and we're going to know everything. And I'll tell you what, some of the crap that I've seen, the leaked videos and things like that are kicking around Google Video, dude, if it's even close to what they're promising, it's going to be, a revolution.
Yeah, E3 I think is going to be really explosive this year. I mean, even if you just take away the Revolution, I think there's going to be so much DS software involved that it's just going to be amazing. I mean, the thing is just taking off so much now. All these companies are just jumping on board and to support this thing, and it's going to be great seeing what's coming out. It really is.
And as a bonus, all of these companies that are folding because it now costs $15 million to make a game for the Xbox, all of these companies that are in financial straits are going to handhelds. Yeah,
and recoup some of their losses.
It's brilliant. Yeah. They're actually saying, you know what? We could have a 50-person team with $15 million making an Xbox 360 game, which may or may not even get a shelf space, or we can spend $56,000 with a 3-man team and produce one kick-ass DS game.
Which would sell maybe millions of copies.
Yeah, say even 1 million copies. Let's say 500,000 copies. How much do you got to make? How quick are you going to get in the black with a $50,000 game?
Right.
And I think that's really where the companies are going to start saying, man, we can't afford to play in that space anymore. The risk is too great. The cost is too great. One failed game bankrupts a company.
Yep.
One failed game. Dude, you can't do business like that. So I think that is going to this is the ripe time for handhelds. Whatever it is, be it a PSP maybe, or the DS, even the Game Boy Advance, let's be honest, the Game Boy Advance is still outselling everything, for crying out loud. But this is the prime time because companies are trying to find another way to make money, and handhelds is where they're going to make money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a cheaper avenue to go to. I mean, like you said, the Xbox is just so much money. And then the games are super expensive. I mean, I guess in retrospect, there's a lot of Super Nintendo and Genesis games that were in the $60 and $70 range as well. So I guess they really haven't cheapened up at all. I mean, it used to be that, we're going to be going on disc. It's going to make everything cheaper. But
what the hell happened to that?
Yeah, it never really happened. And now that the media really isn't that expensive, so it's probably more of licensing rights and so forth now, and distribution fees. But when you get something like the DS, and from what I understand, the little cards aren't that expensive to make, so that really I think helps things. Unlike they're UMD.
They're like what 128 meg, basically modified SD cards.
Yeah, which is what I thought they originally were, SD cards. They look so much like them.
And those things are dirt cheap just to go out and buy one.
Right.
I mean, imagine if you were going to buy 50,000 of them.
Yeah.
How cheap they'd be.
Exactly. Great for a startup company or a company that's really in dire straits to go in and just pick up the manufacturing for the DS. And as long as it's not crap like Elf Doling.
Oh my God. Every now and then I think somebody falls asleep at Nintendo and they put their seal of approval on that crap. I mean, those are the times when you go, hey, what happened to that 8-point quality check that you guys are doing? Because Elf Bowling failed at least 7 of them.
Well, I think that quality seal of approval went out the window circa 1987 when Nintendo brought out Yo Noid and Chester Cheetah for the Nintendo. So.
Good, okay, you're right. I think that the 8-point quality seal is no longer.
But what's great is they would turn down a company like Atari and their fantastic port of Tetris. At the time that. They said, well, we don't approve of that, So that's ridiculous. But
Nintendo's definitely not beyond making mistakes.
No.
Put it that way.
No. So anyway, I can't wait to see what E3 is going to produce, and especially with the DS. I'm really looking forward to the DS stuff, and the Revolution. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. Like you said, you got to see the games first. You can't just pick a winner yet. You can't pick a system to go with yet. I wouldn't even go with the 360, and that's out. I mean, and I'm not saying that because I don't want it, but there's really no software. It drives me nuts. All these people rush out to buy the hardware when there's really no software, and that's how
they're doing the same thing. Right. They're doing the same thing they did with Xbox. They're buying it to watch movies on.
Exactly.
Or stream videos from their computer. I mean, yeah, that's cool, but
that's not what's.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, I want to get it to play games. I already have a DVD player, and I already have a stereo system, or I have a computer that does all this. I don't need an Xbox to do it for me. I mean, I want to play games, and that's one of the reasons I like the DS over the PSP. It's trying to do more or less the same thing in a handheld format. It's trying to do a little bit of everything. Where I already have I have like an MP3 player. I don't need to go out and buy Sony memory cards so I can listen to MP3s on my PSP when I already have a dedicated MP3 player. I mean, those cards are expensive, and the system's expensive already. It's nuts. I don't know. But in any case, I guess moving along, I don't know, what should we talk about next? I guess it would be the I do know if you're looking for a new DS, I think the colors are a little different, but Walmart's got an exclusive Pokemon DS system that they've started to put up on their website. Now, I don't know if it's available in the store or not, but it's more or less it looks like the same color as the electric blue one that's out there now. I think it's a little lighter in tone, but it's more or less the same color. The only difference is if you're a hardcore Pokemon fan, you're going to like it because it's got a little picture of Pikachu in the corner. Pikachu. Yeah. So there you go. You have another system to choose from, and the ever-expanding choice of colors that are out there for the DS now. Never mind the fact that Japan has multiple colors. You got this
man, do they ever have colors?
I wish they would bring like the graphite black over. I think that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, everyone's waiting on the black. I actually had the guy at GameStop the other day tell me he's holding out buying a DS until black comes. It's like, dude, you're wasting some time here. You could be having some good throwdown time.
Exactly. Right now. And then some games will probably be out print by the time you get to them. I mean, there was another big story going on that Phoenix Wright is no longer available in the store. So I'm glad I picked that up when it came out.
I actually saw that at GameStop the other day. I thought I should have grabbed it and put it on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's going for, I think, about $50 on eBay. It looks like they've only made so many copies of it. I read somewhere something like 25 to 30,000 copies, which is extremely low for a game like this. I mean, well, a game in general, but I guess they figured there wouldn't be too much of an audience for a lawyer game, a lawyer simulation or whatever you want to call it, adventure. And
which is really funny because everybody talks about it.
Oh, it's the hot new game now. All of a sudden,
it's hot
now that it's been discontinued or short run, everybody's snagging it up, and it really is funny. It's a neat game. Everybody loves it. They think it's one of the best games, and well, it's all subjective. I mean, I mean, it's a good. I think it's kind of cool. I wouldn't say it's the best game, but it really does bring something new to the system, even though it was basically more or less a port of a old Game Boy Advance game. It's really an ongoing series in Japan. But for America, I guess it's a new thing, much like Trauma Center. You know, it's.
So if you had to say, what would you say is the best game on the DS right now?
It's really hard to kind of pin down there. I mean, I want to say Mario Kart's good.
You had to pick one. You had to pick one title.
Very difficult to do. You know, I guess if you look at it this way, I wouldn't say it's the best game, but it's probably the game that's going to give you the most value right now is Animal Crossing, actually.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, if you're looking at it not so much as maybe the best game, it's a fun game. I really can't pin down what the best game is. There's mostly a lot of games that are just fun. I mean, I'm not saying that they're fun games and they're great games and they're different. But it's hard to pin down a game in particular. But Animal Crossing is something that you could play this forever. I mean, you can keep going and going and going. Just to walk around your town and do things. It's for the money, you're certainly getting a lot out of it. I mean, there's a lot of game time involved. Now, how you define game time in the thing is up to you. I mean, you shake trees, you pick up fruits and so forth, but there's still a lot of value there. I mean, every day is kind of different on the game, you know. And I think there's a lot more to do than say something like Nintendogs. You're kind of limited with Nintendogs, I think. I mean, once you teach your dog your tricks, you get your medals. There's really nothing else to do.
Yeah, it becomes a maintenance game,
yeah.
And you know, Animal Crossing it's very easy to consider that a maintenance game too. You know, I know people that are like totally freaked out on games like Harvest Moon and things like that, where the game is really nothing more than a maintenance game. And if you look at Animal Crossing, you go, damn, that is a maintenance game. What am I doing? I'm sitting here putting like 4 hours a day into this thing. But if you look at it, part of the thing, and this is, again, I go back to my coworkers, because my coworkers are my sounding board. And I was talking to one of the guy, big Xbox guy, same guy, in fact, that we were talking about with Trauma Center. And we were talking about Animal Crossing. I whipped out my DS when I first got to work, and I said, I got to water my turnip. And you should have seen him look at me. I mean, it was just like, what the hell are you talking about, water your turnip? And I'm like, okay. Basically, the concept here is turnips are a commodity in this game. You have to buy them and buy low, sell high.
Stock market.
And one of these turnips, it's like a stock market. And, dude, he's into the stock market, so that's something he understood. When I mentioned commodity exchanges, his ears perked up. And I said, yeah, it's nothing complicated. You know, you just hold on to them and, you know, till the price is right, then you sell. But one of these turnips you have to bury and water for a week before it becomes valuable. Oh, you mean it's sort of like it matures? I'm going, yeah, now you get the idea. And so he said, well, what do you do in this game? And I said, that's kind of complicated. And he's like, well, tell me. So I started telling him about it. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And then I said, but that's not even the cool part. I said, do you know where I was New Year's Eve? He's like, I don't know, drinking, celebrating? I said, no. I was at home with my ass in my chair with this stupid thing open, waiting for the New Year's Eve bash to happen in Animal Crossing. And he's like, what? And I said, did I mention the game runs in real time? If I wake up at the first thing in the morning, it's still dark on my DS. If I do it in the middle of the day, the sun's out. It's December, occasionally it snows. And I said, everything passes with time. And he's like, whoa. I mean, that seemed to like really make an impression on him. I said, yeah. I said, you know, there's fishing to be done, there's insects to catch, there's bones to dig up. And I said, and these things are seasonal. You can't catch the same fish in the summer that you catch in the winter. And he was like, oh, that is so cool. So it was interesting, the things that touch people differently, as I've said before. But in this case, the concept of actual time, I said there are fishing tournaments planned, there are special events throughout the year. He says, you could literally play that game forever, couldn't you? I said, pretty much. So, again, I like to share my stories.
It's value. It's a lot of value in there involved. And you could play, like I said, you could play it forever, really. I mean, you could keep going and going and going. The old GameCube version, I mean, I could turn that on right now, and I haven't played it in so long that my town will have weeds and be overgrown, and people will be saying, "Where have you been? Bugs in my house." It's really a funny thing, yeah. So, but just the aspect of running around collecting things, really, every day it's like, wow, I wonder what he's selling today in his store. Every day the store in the game has a different item, and I think it really connects with women especially because they like to do house. You get the whole house thing going on where you're decorating, and I think that really transfers a lot to that. You see a lot of women playing the game. So.
Oh yeah, my wife is totally hooked
exactly.
on it.
That's
totally
the reason
hooked.
My wife has a DS. I think at this point, after
Animal
being
Crossing.
bummed by Zoo Tycoon, if I can tell you one thing, that's one of the worst games on the DS. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Very
Talk about a game that had massive potential.
Very disappointing.
Massive potential.
Totally dropped in the drain.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Somebody dropped.
All I know is a game that relied on the mouse on the computer. You would think hey, maybe they'll rely on the touchpad and the stylus for the game. No, wrong. Everything's with a directional pad. Intelligent. Now, I'll tell you, when they bring out that Worms game, I'm hoping that Worms, I know, is sort of the same idea. It seems like it would be made for something like the DS. Or
Worms is going to totally own ass.
Now, the one thing I'm really disappointed about, and talking about something similar to that, is the game Lemmings. I used to love Lemmings. How perfect would Lemmings have been on the DS? Touching a lemming, touching his point. Well, sorry, you're not getting Lemmings on the DS, though, because basically Sony owns the rights to Lemmings, which is a crime.
Isn't that
total
horrible?
crime? A game that I think really started out on the Amiga, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Yeah.
It did. It did indeed. DMA Design, who went on to make Grand Theft Auto, and
Isn't that funny?
all sorts of other things. Yeah, isn't that funny? Lemmings to Grand Theft Auto. DMA actually, and I'm going to cross-promote my show here. I actually have a link, and I'm not sure if it'll appear on January's episode of Retro Gaming Radio or February's episode. I can't remember where I put it in the queue. But there's an actual website with the history of DMA from all the way back when they were writing Commodore 64 games and Atari 800 games, all the way through, when they left to go to consoles. So it's fascinating reading about some of these old companies like DMA, how they, came up with Lemmings, how they came up with the original Grand Theft Auto. Good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a great read. It's a great read. So definitely recommend people take a look at that. Well, man, I think that's going to wrap up our first episode.
Yeah, it went pretty fast, I'll tell you. Talking about something you're interested in really goes quick.
Yeah, something you got a little passion for. Next thing you know, an hour and a half's gone by. What do you want? But, hey, it's been great hanging out with you guys out there, probably the 5 of you that download and listen to the show. And hopefully our numbers will grow. Next month we have all sorts of good stuff planned for you. We're not going to pop the cork just yet, but suffice to say that if you found this episode entertaining and useful, you will certainly enjoy our subsequent episodes.
Yeah, I think right off the bat it's kind of nice just to get an idea of what we're going to be discussing and what kind of show this is going to be. We'll probably have a lot more in ways of reviews and rants and views on games, especially from your side. And,
yeah, I can't help it. I've got to get into it. We're going to have to beat the living crap out of Elf Bowling. So.
Yeah, the pan of the week.
Yeah, and there's a few dead pans out there that we're going to have to expose.
Yeah, not everything's so rosy.
We mentioned Zuko.
Not everything's so rosy.
Not everything's rosy. No.
So.
Okay, well, anyway, it's been great. Look for your next episode of Dual Screen Radio coming soon. Our website is dualscreenradio.com. And currently, until we get everything all set up for our email, you can send us email at dualscreenradio@gmail.com. Is that all right?
That sounds
Chris?
correct to me. Yep.
Outstanding. And we will read and answer every email that comes back, unless, of course, you tell us you hate us, and then we might just accidentally file 13 that email. It does happen.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate all feedback, good and bad. That's actually what we're here for, is to, entertain you. So if we're not entertaining you properly, let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, and it's going to be really great to be able to discuss and talk about all the neat stuff that's coming out for this system. I really love this system. I think it's a great little system, and it totally changed me from the beginning of the year. And if you have any kind of passion for the system, you may enjoy listening to us and hearing what we have to offer. I think there's definitely a market for something like this in the World Wide Web. a nice little audio presentation for the system.
Well, okay. Well, Chris, we're going to kick out of here and let these good people go back to whatever they were doing.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll see you later then, Shane.
This is Shane R. Monroe at Dual Screen Radio.
And this is Chris Henschel of Dual Screen Radio.
And just remember, listening is good.